Join us today for an action-packed episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball, where we talk way too early first baseman rankings for 2024.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Sports Network, your team every day. As always, we're your number one source of fantasy baseball knowledge, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Dominic Martino. You can find me on Twitter at DomMartinoFB. Here, as always, with my brother, my co-host, my partner in crime, Matthew Ane, and you can find him on Twitter at Matthew_Ane. If you're listening on a platform like Apple or Spotify that allows 5-star ratings and reviews, we would truly appreciate it if you could do that for us. And if you're watching on YouTube and you haven't already, hit that little bell below. It subscribes to the channel, also gives you notification every time we drop a new episode. And lastly, if you guys want to join us on Subtext, guess what? You will get access to our way too early 2024 top 15 at every position. Once again, as always, Matt and I's rankings are geared towards head-to-head 5x5 categories leagues. With all of that being said, before we get into things today, I need to talk to you about Jace Medical. That is who today's episode is brought to you by. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jace case, providing you with personal supply of 5 plus antibiotics that can treat 50 plus infections. Get yours today at jacemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. So when we hop in today's episode, this is the fun stuff. We're talking about way too early rankings for first base going into 2024. And I feel like I've talked way too much here. Matt, let's recap the fans on the way things ended last year. And then we'll just talk about what stood out to you with the top 10 from last season, brother.
All right. Well, some names disappointed. This year was weird. Let's put it this way. Some names showed up and were just like, hey, I'm going to do what I normally do. Some just, defeated all odds and just decided to just go ham. And then some came out of left field that I'm just like, okay, well, I didn't see this coming. And then others just were like, meh, or didn't live up to the hype, or just didn't live up to their draft price, cough, cough, Goldschmidt. So, there's just a lot of things going on, and there's a lot to cover with this. And I think it's really going to shake up how people are drafting first base, because one, it's not like it's, a shallow position. And two, the top end is so hyper inflated at talent wise that they're going to be pretty much picked in the first 3 rounds. And then I don't think you're picking them until around pick 7 or 8 for the next kind of group. If I'm doing a draft today, at least. So there's going to be a lot of, guys that are just gonna be like, okay, I need, and then guys that are just like, okay, whatever, they fall into a giant group. And let's talk about a few things here, but let's talk about my first guy here, somebody that I think is gonna fall out of favor with me going for next year in 2024, and that's Mr. Yandy Diaz. Yandy Diaz, I think this year just wasn't real. Age 31 season, gonna be 32. I don't believe in this late of a breakout, because this is a career high across the board in every single category. So, you look at his total at bats for starters, most by 50. And then his career high in runs, 95, is literally 24 higher than last year, which was his career high then. 35 doubles. Again, that's a really high number, not too far off from last year. Career high in home runs at 22. Career high in ribbies at 78. Career high in batting average at 330. Well, he is a batting average guy, so I would say he's probably going to be about a 380 to 390 batting average. It's the only real stat that I think will not be detrimentally.
380 to 390?
I'm sorry, 280 to 280. Sorry. You know what I meant. 280 to 290. Yeah, no,
you took me off guard because I was like a little out of it for a second. I was like, wait, did he say 380?
Yeah, no, I meant 280. So you look at this and you go, okay, great year. He had a fantastic year, especially if you picked him off waivers. He definitely wasn't drafted this year. But you look at Yandy Diaz, and it's like, okay, well, now I got to think about next year, right? Where do you draft him? Where does he fall? Well, for me, Yandy specifically is nowhere even near the top 10 for me. He's 17. I'm not touching him next year. He could be like a great bench bat. That's when I would touch him. That's when I would pick him up. And I'm going to take a guess. I don't know ADP, but I'm going to say, though, at least everybody that's drafting now is probably an industry guy. Is probably on the same page as me. And is probably not touching him unless he's like the third or fourth bench guy. I don't like Yandy Diaz, and I don't think this year is real. And I think he's going to flop. So probably, I guarantee he'll be on the bust list next year because his value, where he's going to be drafted versus where he's actually going to finish, it's going to be significantly different.
Yeah, Matt, we're pretty much in sync when it comes to Yandy Diaz. I have Yandy as my number 15th overall first baseman going into next year. And when we go to ADP, as when we did our catcher rankings, we're doing the same thing here. We have NFBC ADP pulled up 24 drafts so far on their platform. If you don't know, NFBC is the National Fantasy Baseball Championship, one of the most well-known fantasy baseball platforms to play very competitively with the experts and for money. So with that ADP right now, Yandy Diaz, 14th first baseman off the board, pick 139. That's not a horrible price on Yandy. I like the 95 runs. I think that's legit if he's going to be at the top of that, Tampa Bay's lineup. The 22 bombs is a career high. Not really a power guy. He's shown a little bit of power here and there before in his career. I'm not expecting a repeat on that. I think that's going to be a lot closer to 15 to 18. The RBIs at 78, on a good Tampa Bay team if they're competitive again next year like they were this year. That's believable. But he's not going to hit 330 again. That's the thing with Yandy. Even if he hits 300, Yandy finished last year's number 4 first baseman overall, 34 player overall. I'm just not buying it. I'm not really getting in on Yandy. If he falls, and as Matt said, you get him as one of your bench players, I think I would take him there. But otherwise, not really too much going on with the Yandy. Let's move into this next guy real quick. I want to talk about, I think the bounce back player of the year, comeback player of the year, in my opinion, Cody Bellinger. Big thing with Cody, probably going to be on a new team next year unless the Cubs want to shell out and, give him the big contract because it is a free agent year for Cody Bellinger. Just a monster season for, the 27-year-old Cody. 130 games, 499 at-bats, 95 runs, 29 doubles, 1 triple, 26 homers, 97 RBIs, 20 steals, 40 walks to 87 strikeouts, really improved that strike to walkout ratio this season and a 307 batting average. I don't think Cody ever gets back to the MVP form, but is he, is it believable that he can be this good again next year? I think it certainly is. I have Cody as my number 6 first baseman going into next year. ADP is right on track with me. Number 6 first baseman, pick 52 overall. He also has that outfield eligibility going into next year. I think there's a lot to love about Cody Bellinger. Does a lot of things right. He seemed to find his swing again. I just think everything is believable, and I think we could see, another great season. I'd love to see him come play with my Yankees, but, it's just going to be interesting to see the way things, shake out for Cody Bellinger. But I'm in on Bellinger for next season.
Yeah, I'm in on Bellinger depending on where he lands. Like he can go and just get his bag of money, and then he pretty much just says, "Okay, I'm on the worst team in baseball, and I don't care." But like you said, if he returns to the Cubs or if he ends up on the Yankees or something of the sort, like, yo, I'm in. I think logically, I think the best landing spot, the landing spot for him for real baseball would be Miami to draw in some other talent of bats, and they need it. And it would actually be a decent landing spot, except for the deeper porch, essentially. But I think Cody Bellinger, with his power, it really doesn't matter how far the fence is. He's pretty much just going to hit it out of the park. But if he decides to go and sign with the Giants, I'm pretty much out. So it just really depends on where his landing spot is. It's kind of how I'm treating it. But before we move on and we move forward and talk about the rest of these first basemen here, we have an ad for you real quick. We spend a lot of time talking together, you and I. We get fired up together over wins and losses, who starts, who sits, and I'm thankful for that connection we have. And today, I want to chat a little bit about a little something a little bit more personal. I just learned you can order and get a 1 year supply of ED medication. You realize what that means? Bring on extended travel. Bring on the next natural disaster or supply chain issue. You're covered, my friend. You don't have to worry whether or not you can refill your generic prescriptions of Cialis, Viagra, Remvifo prescriptions. I mean, I can't go without those. And this possibly this possible because of our friends at Jace Medical. Go online right now at jacemedical.com to receive your 12-month supply of your daily medication. Remember to use the promo code locked on at checkout for all the discounts. A verified customer had this to say about Jace. I'm thankful for this service. Supply chain issues caused me to cut these pills in half. I ordered most of my daily meds with a 1 year supply. I also ordered an antibiotic kit. I feel secure now. Prices are lower than local pharmacies. I highly recommend this for everyone. If you or someone you would feel at peace and have a peace of mind by having a year supply of these meds, go to jacemedical.com to see if this offer is right for you. Remember, use the promo code locked on for $20 off at for your purchase. Ugh. Well, if that wasn't the most wordiest thing ever, but well informative, and you want to check it out, please do. But yeah, I'm done stumbling, and I want to talk about our next guy here, who give me a Cialis for because it's Spencer Steer in 2024. You know, Spencer Steer. I love what this kid came out and did this year. I'm not even gonna lie, and I love the team. I am low key a Reds fan for fantasy. It's gonna be absolute gold next year. 582 at bats, 74 runs, 3 triples, 23 bombs, 86 ribs, 15 stolen bases, and batted a nice 271. Steer showed out this year. I can't say nothing bad about him. Played almost every game this year with 156 games. Like, yo, let's go. And on top of that, I mean, he really just is showing exactly who he was in the minors. Minors, the stats actually didn't look much different. He had 23 home runs in the minors. He had 23 home runs this year. He had more ribbies in the bigs. He had literally 10 more stolen bases in the bigs. And the batting average is right on par. To be honest, at age 25, I don't foresee how he doesn't take a step forward. Like, all signs point to green arrow up. Like, yes, he's 5'11 and 185 pounds, but you don't have to be big to have power. I think he has 30 home runs in him. And I think the 15 stolen base number is a little inflated and also a product of the larger base sizes. But at the same time, I think that it's doable and repeatable just because, you know what, guys that generally didn't steal bases last year did because of the enticing size of these bases and being able to slide in and possibly be more successful at stealing bases. So guys went a little bit more and got more of a green light. Spencer Steer, I want to say Steel, like, you know, Man of Steel here, is going to benefit not only from, you know, just him being good and being able to take that step forward in his year 2, but also being a product of that lineup with ECH and Ellie De La Cruz. So I feel Steer is going to be phenomenal next year and is going to be great. I actually have him as my 12th first baseman this year. And I feel come draft season, he might be climbing.
All right. So this is a guy where I have an idea why, but I'm so not in agreement with my brother Matt and the market right now. Because, even when, we talk about ADP for next year, Spencer Steer's coming off the board as number 9 first baseman, pick 102 overall. I mean, I see everything Matt's talking about. Monster season on the board from Steer, but he was never a high-end prospect. Matt talks about the great 2022 in the minors. 2021 in the minors was, mediocre for him. The batting average wasn't there. The home runs weren't there. 8 steals in 110 games. I don't know what there is to love except just what he did. The steals look nice, the homers look nice, but he doesn't really hit the ball very hard. Mediocre average exit velocity, doesn't really get the ball off the bat very hard, doesn't really, it just doesn't really do it for me. I have him as my 21st first baseman. That's probably going to have to come up upon further deep dive. But if he continues to hit third, I know he was hitting third in the Reds lineup. I could see it being worth it. But, when they're working all of these young kids into the lineup, I kind of just want to really see how it ends up next year. Wouldn't be surprised if, Ellie De La Cruz makes an appearance in that top. You have, Jonathan India, if he stays with the team, another guy, Encarnacion Strand, McLean, Friedel. It's just going to be a very, very loaded lineup. I'm not betting on Steer to make, any great improvements or strides. He played 156 games this year. I think this is kind of who he is. With that all being said, with Steer, just a guy that I'm not going out of my way for. I think that what pick was I say he was going off the board at pick 100, ninth first baseman. I think I'd wait. I'd rather get guys going after him like Casas and Torkelson, Strand, Josh Naylor, all four of those guys, and Vinnie Pasquantino, another big name that I would take, over Mr. Spencer Steer. But you know what? With that being said, we've only covered a few first basemen here. Let's grab another one. I just mentioned his name. This can't be a first baseman show for Matt and I if we're not talking about Vinnie Pasquantino, the Italian breakfast. I think there's going to be so much value in Vinnie P this upcoming season. Everyone's going to forget the hype that was around him and the monster, rookie season that he had. Last year, he tore his labrum in his right shoulder, had to get surgery on it, was out for, most of the season. But the limited time that, Vinnie P was out there, he did look great. Big 6'4", 245 pounder, the Italian breakfast, Vinnie P. 61 games for him last year, 231 at bats, 24 runs, 17 doubles, 9 homers, 26 RBIs, 25 walks, 31 strikeouts, and a 247 batting average. The batting average definitely left some room to be desired. But, right now, through Vinnie P's first two, half seasons, we almost have a full season of stats worth, to put together. 133 games in his career, 49 runs, 27 doubles, 19 homers, 52 RBIs, 60 walks, 65 strikeouts, 272 batting average. I think Vinnie P has, 30 homer upside. The runs and RBIs. Hopefully, this Kansas City team can pull it together. They have a lot of young, good names. Starting with their anchor Bobby Witt, that can really get it done. I have Vinnie P as my 10th first baseman overall, and it looks like you're not even going to have to pay anywhere near that to get him this year. 16th first baseman off the board, as I mentioned, pick 168. I'm on that all day. You have Vinnie P as one of your, your bench players, corner infield. A lot of value on Vinnie P.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, if you've been with us since the beginning of the offseason last year, where this is a Vinnie P positive podcast. As you can tell by Dom's tone of voice, and I'm right there with Dom. The reason is why he's going so cheap is I feel everybody's anticipating a slow start. Also, probably feeling burned for the first half of the season where Vinnie P pretty much was dealing with just a horrendous start to the season in year 2 and was calling out the sophomore slump. But honestly, I feel he was dealing with the shoulder injury and playing through it. And that was more the reason why he did not perform up to expectation. I think Vinnie P is going to be great, and that's going to be what a value. But I also think that this podcast and spring training is probably going to drive him to be a top 12 first baseman come draft season. But if you're drafting now and you're in an NFBC draft, make sure to walk out of the draft with Vinnie Pasquantino for that price. Like, it's going to be incredible. I have him actually higher than Dom does. I have him at 8 at first base. I'm ready to rock. I'm fully back in. I don't care. I don't have any burn marks left. I understand what was going on. And there's no reason that he can't do exactly what I expect him to do in 2024. And before we move on and we talk about all the other wonderful players we have at first base, Dom has a sponsor for you.
And guys, that sponsor is FanDuel. Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action, so you better get in on it today. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and much, much more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season right with FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL. All right, guys. So we're gonna keep things rocking and rolling here, and I'm just gonna head right back to my brother Matt because I know there was somebody that he was eager to talk about, and as we're coming towards the end of the episode, I know we got to get him in.
Yeah, let's talk about Mr. Paul Goldschmidt. Goldie really didn't do what we expected him to do this year. Winning MVP last year, just kind of did not expect this kind of season. We kind of expected to see exactly what he did last year, if not just a little bit less, and I'd be really happy with it. But unfortunately, it was significantly less. This year, 593 at bats. He had 89 runs in comparison to his 106 the year before. 25 home runs versus 35 home runs. That was the real drop off right there. 80 ribs to 115. More stolen bases. That's great. 11-7. And batted 268 versus his good old 317, which, I mean, not for nothing, Goldie is a batting average machine. So you would expect someone that like him to hit in the 290s. So Paul Goldschmidt ultimately was a disappointment. Now, he was a great buy low target because if you went into the playoffs and things like that, and that later in the year, he was more valuable, but it was just a little bit of not the tier of what Goldschmidt was. It wasn't like, oh my God, he's outright just thrusting me to the finish line for the win for each week or even during the playoffs, but he was just better at that time. I look at Goldschmidt for next year and I go, man, are we about to see the other shoe drop? And I look at it as a whole of my rankings of him, and I have him at 6. And the reason for it is I don't think that his numbers were as much as him as a decline in because of his age and him as a whole, as I think it was the spirit of the team and what was going on there. St. Louis Cardinals were like my like surefire lock team that I would have placed a bet on to make the playoffs, and they came nowhere near it. They were one of the worst teams in baseball, and I feel that with the team kind of going through a few things with Jordan Walker kind of going to take a step forward, I think next year, and the rest of the team kind of just figuring it out. I feel they'll have a nice bounce back as a whole. And between him, Arenado, Jordan Walker, and the others on that team, we're going to see Paul Goldschmidt bounce back. Now, we may not see a 35 home run season, but I think the runs and ribbies are going to be legitimate. And I think the batting average returns because he's just a good batter and he's really good at what he does. So he will figure that part out. But if he hits anywhere from 27 to 30 home runs, I'm okay with him at pick 6 of my first baseman rankings, essentially, not number 6 overall. That'd be absolutely crazy.
Yeah, there were days where, Goldschmidt did used to be in consideration for 6th overall, but those days have come and gone. Kind of sets the tone for what I'm about to say here. At, what's going to be his age 36 season next year, Goldschmidt, he's been like the Iron Man of the MLB since he's like come into it. He's always played so many games, hardly ever been hurt. But Father Time, just undefeated, and, the shoe's going to fall off the other foot at that sooner than later. And I think this year was kind of an indication of that. I have Goldschmidt as my number 8 first baseman, which is, pretty solid still. I think he's going to be fine, but I think he's shown us his new baseline. I think it's, under 30 home runs. I think the steals are going to, come down a little bit. I think the batting average, takes a step back. Look at Miguel Cabrera. Kind of just almost came out of nowhere when, Miguel Cabrera fell off. I think it's going to be a similar fashion with Paul Goldschmidt. Right now with, ADP, 7th overall, pick 73. a bit rich for my blood, even though I do have him ranked as my number 8 first baseman. I'd rather wait and, get some of these other guys that we're going to be talking about in a little bit. And, just that's so he has to be Goldschmidt-esque to warrant being picked that high. And I just don't know how much of that is left in the tank. And honestly, he's just a guy that almost is like due to, get hurt, as knock on wood, because I don't want to see it happen. But, once again, Father Time goes undefeated. Let's talk about this next guy, a young guy. We go from an old vet to, a young and up-and-coming guy. Let's talk about Triston Casas. I love Triston Casas. I have him as my number 12 first baseman going into next year. If you want him, though, so far, NFBC ADP has him as the 10th first baseman overall, pick 106. I honestly think he deserves it. There's another level with this kid. He was a high-end prospect for a reason. Casas in his full first season with the Boston Red Sox, age 23, 132 games, 429 at-bats, 66 runs, 21 doubles, 2 triples, 24 homers, 65 RBIs, 70 walks to 126 strikeouts. You like that? That's not too bad. And a 263 batting average. Honestly, Casas has, well over 30 home run upside. The runs and the RBIs should be okay in that Boston lineup. Boston's got a decent team over there. We'll see how it looks going into next season. That might dictate things a little bit more. But this is a kid, who could hit the upwards of 265, 275 in that range with, 30 plus homers and a good run in RBI total. I like Casas for next year. ADP is a little bit high for my liking, so I may not be fully in on him, but there is another level to this kid. I just don't know if I'm willing to pay for that as the 10th first baseman off the board going into next season.
Yeah. I mean, that is outrageous. I don't have him at 10. I have him a few spots lower in general. There's just a few other guys I'd probably walk away with over him, like CEH, for instance, and Steer.
Yep. I have CES ahead of him.
Yeah, and I have another guy well ahead of him that I'm going to talk about next, and it's your boy. So, I mean, I'll make a case for it in a second. But, like, I love Casas as a whole. But, again, that's way too rich for my blood. And if he keeps going up the draft rankings, the ADP, he is going to end up on my bust list just based off of where he's drafted, not what his upside is. It's more based off of what his floor can be. But let's talk about this last guy here, because I know I'm going to talk a little bit about him, and then Dom's probably going to just go drool, look like he has rabies, and just keep going. So let's talk about Mr. Nolan Jones. Nolan Jones, great season. Really showed out this year. I'm very excited to say I have him ranked at my number 7 overall first baseman. I'm very excited for him. Now, what he did this year was great in 106 games, 367 at-bats, 60 runs, 22 doubles, 4 triples, 20 bombs, 62 ribs, 20 stolen bases, and batted .297. Nolan Jones showed out. And it was everything we kind of wanted and expected and just was excited about, because I think the kid has it. I think he figured out what this level is, and he's going to do it. Plus, he's going to get an inflation in terms of home runs and such for hitting in Colorado. So the power doesn't even have to be 100% real. As long as he's playing half his games in Colorado, there is no reason he cannot be a powerhouse in terms of home runs. Plus, he has proven that he can hit for average in the bigs, which usually is a great sign that he is going to be successful in that category, even if he takes a little bit of a dip to sell out for more power. And with that team hopefully being healthy, or just calling up a few of their prospects, just one would be wonderful. I feel it would be such a giant boost to that lineup that desperately needs talent. And Nolan Jones, I think, is going to be one of the future faces of this organization. And Nolan Jones' 2024 season is going to be incredible. Now, Dom, go for it, bro.
Yeah, so here's the thing, my brother, is that instead of Casas, I was going to talk about Nolan Jones, but I was like, I got to try and keep the secret of Nolan Jones, but I guess that's not going to happen. And plus, if you listen to the podcast at all last year, you probably heard me talk about Nolan Jones. One of my favorite players going into next year, but here's the thing, right? He did only play 10 games at first base, so if your league has more than 10 games to reach eligibility. He did not reach it, but I know in at least Yahoo, which is where Matt and I play most of our fantasy baseball, he will be eligible at first. So Nolan Jones is coming off the board next season. Get ready to listen to this. Pick 58 overall. That's, once again, NFBC ADP, where, it's just mostly experts and only 24 drafts. Pick 58 seems a little bit crazy to me. But if you can get Nolan Jones as your outfielder too, or, starting first baseman, you're going to walk away pretty happy. Went 20-20 last year in only the 106 games and 367 at-bats that he had. There's 30-30 upside here with, great batting average opportunity and the runs and RBIs. Could be plus as well. I have Nolan Jones as my number 9 first baseman going into next year, and I absolutely love him. Great player to have for next season. I think the kid, sky's the limit. But with that being said, guys, we are going to wrap things up here. Once again, sign up for Subtext, where you'll be able to get our top 15 at each position going into next year. But that's all for today. Please be sure to like, subscribe, comment, rate, and review, and make sure you look out for a new episode tomorrow. But until then, see you.
Peace.